What practical actions, either formal, informal, big or small, do you take to show allyship day to day?
On a formal tactical level, I try to practice what is sometimes called amplification or idea spotlighting. We know the data suggests women are interrupted significantly more often than men. If a female colleague makes a point that gets glossed over, or if she is interrupted, I will actively bring the room back to her. I think Sarah had a crucial point there that we need to explore, or hold on, let's let Emma finish that thought. It sounds small, but it resets the dynamic of the room and ensures credit lands where it's due. On a more personal, informal level, I put everything on the table regarding my own vulnerability. I'm very open about my own feelings and uncertainties. By admitting when I don't know the answer or where I'm finding a situation difficult, I try to signal that it is safe for others to do the same. This helps dismantle the bravado culture that often alienates underrepresented groups. Crucially, I operate with an open door policy regarding critique. I explicitly ask my colleagues, was I supportive in that meeting? Did I miss something? Allyship is a learning process, not a destination. You have to be thick-skinned enough to take feedback on board and adjust your behavior without getting defensive. That willingness to learn is perhaps the most practical action of all.
I think it's just to help them with assessments, schoolwork. Like I said, a lot of them feel like sometimes some of them feel maybe inadequate, some of them feel like, oh, it's a lot and they can't do it. And I always just try to be that pillar of support that the fact you are here, the fact that you've made it here, we are standing here together, you are not better than me. We both deserve to be here. So meaning you have the ability to do this. You just need to believe in yourself. And I love it so much when they come out, when we're having our group discussions, when we're doing our assessments together, and sometimes I make a mistake and they're telling me, oh Bethel, you made this mistake, this isn't how you should do this, this is how you should do this. It makes me feel so much better, so much more willing to share more of what I know, so that if I'm wrong, maybe the information I have currently is there's a mistake in it. If they can correct me, if they have more valid information, we can always share with one another, we can always learn from one another. And I think that's the importance of, again, allyship in the workspace.
For me, I mean, I'm not perfect at it, but I think that consistency matters more than grand gestures with this sort of thing. I think that whether you're in meetings, you want to make space for people. You want to make sure that um, people are speaking up and that they feel safe to speak up, and that if there's interruptions happening, then those people have the opportunity to still speak up, whether that's, questioning why the interruptions are happening in the first place or giving them a space to speak, equally, is very important within meetings. Another thing as well is, credit. When people have done a really good job, you really want to shout out, give them credit for that, praise the work that they're doing, and really kind of showing off to everyone, not just within the team, but the wider business about what's been going on, whether that's in showcases or whatever it may be.
I think most allyship probably happens in kind of small, unglamorous moments rather than, big, grand gestures that happen every now and then. And for me, I think that's about, obviously there's behaviors you can take. So there's crediting people properly for the work they've done. So I've worked on projects with female colleagues, and when, ultimately the report gets some good feedback or it gets talked about in meetings, making sure that my colleagues who've contributed to that and done some really good work on that get the credit they deserved, and that's recognised.
Yes, there's a lot of things males can do day to day in order to show allyship. As with a lot of things, I feel allyship needs to be consistent. So, for example, you'll see more change from small daily gym sessions rather than a mammoth all-day session once a week. And allyship needs to be the same. So repeatedly calling out interruptions during meetings, for example, or crediting ideas, challenging the cultural fit, and advocating diversity. Calling things out in a calm, professional manner in the moment. So they're the things I can influence, and where I feel that influence will matter and make a difference.
Giving credit where it's due is non-negotiable. I also make a conscious effort to challenge negative comments, however small, and to amplify the achievements of female colleagues, whether they are early adopters of tech or just beginning their journey. Positive reinforcement should be visible and vocal. These actions, though simple, help build a culture of respect and recognition.
So I can see how being a male ally matters, because someone like me, who can move through these systems with, I guess, less friction, gives me a responsibility to notice where others are being pushed to the edges. The sort of visibility is important, not just visual, but the awareness of what's going on. So when men openly acknowledge these challenges, it signals that issues women face in tech are real, recognised, and are not being ignored. And I think that's an important message.
So I'm lucky to work in a team that's fairly balanced in terms of gender. So allyship often takes the form of everybody just sharing knowledge and helping each other out, wherever appropriate. Day to day, we all ensure our departmental environment is inclusive for ourselves, obviously, but we engage with a lot of staff and learners too. So this generally takes the form of being very considered in our approach when we run sessions, and minimizing bias and politely calling out bias if we see it. Recently, I heard a phrase, call up, don't call out, and I believe that's a good one. Don't just call someone out and say you've done something wrong. Call them up and say, oh, I've noticed this, and engage in a bit of discourse as to why that's an issue.
So I think the biggest action I try to take is remaining consistent. What that means is allyship isn't just a temporary one-off exercise. It's something that is a part of my behavior, my day-to-day behavior, and it's going to stay that way because that's the only way you kind of get that continuous change and improvement going forward. If you start thinking of it as, okay, an activity I have to do, okay, this week I have to be a male ally, it won't be sustainable. It has to be you. It has to be a part of you. The whole idea of allyship should be something that comes natural. So I think that's the biggest kind of action I try to take, is being consistent and continuing to be an ally no matter what happens, whether it's the good times or the bad times. I'm there as an ally.
I mentioned earlier about a colleague who struggles in the technical forum until there's a male validation. For me, I think it's important to challenge those micro behaviours and keep chipping away at that stereotyping or unconscious bias on a daily basis. I use my status, seniority, the access to my rooms, network, stakeholders. If I challenge those behaviours in a public forum, then I'm expecting others to pick up on that behaviour and start doing that. We should all be actively mentoring or sponsoring women into bigger roles and not just offering friendly advice. It's important for developing individuals and reinforcing these behaviours, strengths and beliefs. I'm a big champion of flexible working patterns that benefit everyone, from our mental health, working parents, male and female. A lot of women do fit part and full-time work around childcare. So for me, the expectation of the norm of 9 to 5 reduces the talent pool significantly. So whenever I'm recruiting, I'll always put hours to suit. To me, these are the habits that accumulate into culture change that I think we need to drive.